Our money lead, President Trump says it is highly unlikely he will fire Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, despite telling lawmakers in a private meeting just yesterday he was considering it. But Trump didn't just deny reports he would fire Powell. He also said this.
He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in and extended him. But they did.
Hold on a second. For the record, it was President Trump who elevated Jerome Powell to Federal Reserve Chair. He's the one who would put him in there. Remember the whole Rose Garden event in November 2017?
It is my pleasure and my honor to announce my nomination of Jerome Powell to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Okay, so anyway, joining me now, CNN anchor and chief domestic correspondent Phil Mattingly. Phil, President Trump said today, I was surprised he was appointed. You appointed him! Did he really not remember that?
It's not only that, it's that the beef with Jerome Powell started back in 2018. President Trump started pursuing the idea of removing the Fed chair back in 2018. It was a risk that his economic advisors viewed as so palpable and potentially realistic that they actually pursued both economic data showing that it had a negative market impact every time he talked about the idea of it, and also the legal grounds showing that he did not have the authority back in 2018. He also still pretty much hates Steven Mnuchin, his Treasury Secretary who recommended Powell, because he recommended Powell. So I don't have a good explanation.
I guess it's just trying to will, Earth 2 into...
It's a confusing story to follow right now. This is a new element, without question.
Something's confused. Turning back to what Trump said today, that it's highly unlikely that he will fire Powell, that's a direct contrast with what you're reporting.
Yeah. Last night, the president met in the Oval Office with a group of House Republicans over a cryptocurrency bill where the issue came up. Look, the president's view on this, his disdain for Powell, his disdain for where rates currently sit, is not secret, nor is it subtle. But in the course of that conversation, I'm told that he polled the lawmakers that were present whether or not he should fire Powell. Just about everybody there said the answer is yes. And he also referenced a piece of paper that he said was a draft removal letter of Powell. What's most interesting is this morning, as reporting started coming out on this, the White House didn't knock it down. Yeah. In fact, there were officials who were saying that it was likely he was headed in this direction. 30 minutes later, and a significant market dip later, the president saying it's not on the table, repeating what he said for months. It's not something he's going to pursue at this moment, but he might if cause suddenly percolates in the future.
But on that matter, on Trump seeing the market dip, perhaps we assume that might have been what motivated him, and then saying, no, I'm not considering right now. Take a listen to Louisiana Republican Senator John Kennedy asked if Trump should fire Jerome Powell. Take a listen.
If you fire the chairman of the Federal Reserve, you will see the stock market crash, and you will see the bond market crash.
I know that a lot of people on Wall Street respect Powell. Is that dire warning true?
Based on, I think, a very significant catalog of economic research, countries who have a central bank that is not viewed as independent typically do not end up in a good place. In fact, there's a great quote from Kennedy a couple of weeks ago where he said, generally speaking, their Powerball jackpot is 287 chickens and a goat. As in, the economy's not great there. It's a very Kennedy-esque.
Yeah, I got it. I didn't need the explainer, but thank you.
Some people might. And I think that's the risk here. Look, let's not clutch pearls here. Presidents have jawboned the Fed in the past. Sure. Privately, publicly, this is a very different level of jawboning. I think the primary difference here, when you talk to economic advisors, they understand, one, the value of the independence of the Fed, the necessity of it, but also the very clear risk of going down the path of trying to remove Fed. They don't believe they have the legal basis in and of itself. Pursuing it for cause is tenuous at best, despite the effort they've got underway behind the scenes right now. What they point to is that the effort to kind of work the refs here, as Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says, could have an effect over time. Just keep in mind, Jake, and you know this well, Jay Powell is not making unilateral decisions on interest rates during Fed meetings. It is a Federal Open Market Committee. None of the committee members in the last meeting voted to cut rates. There may be a couple who are considering it, but Powell can't do it on his own. Moving him certainly wouldn't help that. And I think the interesting thing is there is a policy debate about the value of cutting rates at this point in time. And the president seems to be undercutting that by focusing on this and potentially removing him instead.
On another matter having to do with the economy, Vice President J.D. Vance was in Pittsburgh today trying to sell the president's One Big Beautiful Bill Act. A new CNN poll shows that 61% of the American people do not support the president's bill. This is not a good number. There's time before the midterms, more than a year. But is this going to be a real problem, do you think, for Republicans?
When you talk to Democrats, they believe that's the case. When you talk to Republicans who have seen internal polling, they say it matches up with where CNN's numbers were this morning for the most part. And I think Vance's point today in his remarks was actually a really salient one, which was telling supporters, don't wait for a year or a year and a half to tell your neighbors that there are valuable aspects of this bill. We don't have that long heading into the midterms. You have to do it now. We've seen a lot of presidents pass cornerstone pieces of legislation, claim that there are pieces of it that are popular, and at some point people will get it. I think the administration is aware there's work to do here, particularly on the deficit concerns raised by none other than Elon Musk. And Vance is kind of the opening salvo of what is, they say, is going to be a very significant effort, both publicly and in events like today, but also on the airwaves as well.
Yeah, like no tax on tips or something like that.
Extremely popular in isolation. Can they focus on that and get it to kind of sink?
Yeah, the Medicaid cuts, not so much.
Less so.
Philip Mattingly, thanks so much. Always good to have you. To the World Lead next.